Well, it looks like you graduated from college and found a job, but you quit after 6 months.
The interviewer chuckled through his nose as he said this.
Young people today quit their jobs so easily. We want employees to stay long term, but they leave in no time. They complain about disliking their work, their bosses, the workload, or low pay. You know, back in our day, anyone who said things like that wouldn't even be hired.
I went home and spoke to the framed photo of mom and dad. Today's interview didn't go well either, but don't worry. I'll find a good job. I promise. I checked job listings on my phone. No way. I didn't think this company was hiring. Well, nothing to lose, and I'll apply it. Then came interview day. I put on my late dad's suit and strapped on the watch he left me.
That watch. I thought so.
Sorry? My name is Alex Carter. I'm 22 years old. I'm currently doing everything I can to find a job. After graduating college, I landed a position at a company. But I didn't last long there. It was a pretty well-known firm, but the overtime was brutal and I was constantly swamped. Still, that's not why I quit. Even though I was busy, I found the work meaningful. The real issue was my boss. We didn't get along, and going to work every day became a huge burden. He had a reputation in the company as a newbie crusher. My fellow new hires kept quitting one after another. I tried to hang in there as long as I could, but by the 6-month mark, I'd reached my limit. I reported it to upper management multiple times, but they told me they couldn't remove him because he'd been with the company for so long. Nothing ever changed. So, I quit. Now, I'm working hard to land a job at a new company. But no one seems to want to hire someone who left their first job after just 6 months. Every interview goes the same way.
Why did you quit after just 6 months?
I was harassed by my boss. There's no way I could say something like that. During interviews, it's a huge no-no to badmouth your former employer as the reason for quitting. So instead, I'd cover it up by saying things like, I didn't get along well with the company, or I wanted to improve my skills. But those answers never seemed to satisfy the interviewer. A quitter who gave up after 6 months. That's all they saw me as. I had gone to 4 interviews, but not a single offer came through. If things kept going this way, I'd be in serious trouble. I didn't have any parents I could rely on. My mom passed away from illness when I was little, and my dad passed away last year from the same fate. I had no home to go back to. The old apartment we lived in was cheap, and someone else was probably living there by now. There was nowhere for me to return to. No one I could lean on for help. That's why I had to find a new job as soon as possible. Thinking that way, I kept working part-time while hunting for job openings every day. One day, a job listing caught my eye. It was for the company I'd admired for years. No way. They're hiring? That company rarely ever posted job openings. Back in college, I checked multiple times to see if they were hiring. I even asked my professors and friends to keep an eye out, but no openings ever came up. And now, out of nowhere, there it was. They were hiring, and only 3 positions were available. Should I go for it, even if it's a long shot? No, it's probably pointless, right? It's such a big company. Why would they hire someone who quit after 6 months? I let out a self-deprecating laugh and forced myself to stop looking at the listing before going to bed. But even as I tried to sleep, all I could think about was that job opening at the top company. I knew I didn't stand a chance, but it was my dream job, which I'd always wanted. Maybe it wouldn't hurt to take a chance. That thought kept swirling in my mind. No, I need to stay focused on what's right in front of me. Today's interview is with Greenfield Corp. I've got to give it my all and land that offer. I arrived at the office building for my interview with a different company. Wearing the same suit I used during my college jobs hunt, I walked into the building, nerves and all. I followed the receptionist's directions and stepped into the conference room.
Let's get started. Please introduce yourself and share your highest level of education.
Yes, my name is Alex Carter, and I graduated from Oak Ridge University. I gave my usual introduction, listing my education and sharing my personal pitch.
I see you graduated college and started working at Bluefield Corp, but you left after just 6 months.
The interviewer, an older man, let out a small snicker as he spoke. But I was already used to that kind of reaction. Honestly, I couldn't blame them, and it was understandable. After briefly explaining why I left, I tried to emphasize my strengths. That's why I believe I can excel in sales by utilizing my strengths. I'm also pretty good with numbers, so...
All right, that's enough.
Sorry?
Young people today quit their jobs so easily. We want employees to stay long-term, but they leave in no time. They complain about disliking their work, their bosses, the workload, or low pay. You know, back in our day, anyone who said things like that wouldn't even be hired. We worked for the company. Unpaid overtime was just part of life. I think kids today are incredibly lucky, and yet new hires keep quitting.
The interviewer started telling me stories about his hardships. I sometimes came across people like this in interviews. They'd go on about how tough things were in their era and how things are much easier now. The unspoken implication was always the same. You're going to quit too, aren't you? Sure, it was my decision to leave my previous company. But I wanted them to look at more than just that. No matter how much I talked about my strengths or my ambitions, the moment I explained why I left, they'd sigh in disappointment. I knew it was inevitable, but it was still crushing.
And maybe you should put a bit more effort into your appearance.
Is it really that bad?
It's not bad, but I guess you could say you look a little too modern. You've got the freshness, but maybe not enough humility.
I see. I barely remembered what questions came after that. But I remember the frustration and sadness all too well. I went home and spoke to the framed photo of Mom and Dad. Today's interview didn't go well either, but don't worry, I'll land a great job for sure. As usual, I pulled out my phone and started looking for job listings. With so many online job boards, there were tons of listings from different companies. And there was the job posting from the top company I'd seen the other day. If I could work at a company like that, it'd be so rewarding. There was a reason I'd admired this company for so long. It was because my dad always praised them.
That company is amazing. They started as a small business and grew so quickly. You've probably heard their name everywhere, right? I actually worked there for a while. It was such a great place to work. The employees were so relaxed and happy.
Dad, I've heard that story dozens of times already. If it was such a great place, why'd you leave? It was a big company, and the pay must have been good too.
Yeah, but I guess I found something more important than the company.
What are you even talking about? That doesn't make sense. But yeah, I get it. It does sound like a fun place to work, especially with such great benefits.
Oh, really? Then you should totally apply it. If you got a job there, I'd be so proud of you.
Come on, Dad. They'd reject me during the application screening. But yeah, it would be amazing if I could work there.
The most important thing is for you to work where you want to. And if you ever need anything, just tell me. I'll always have your back.
Stop being so weird, Dad.
Weird? It's not weird. All right then. Here comes Dad's hug attack.
Ugh. That's gross. Stop it. My dad laughed out loud. Thinking back, those were really fun times. After it was just me and Dad, things got tough sometimes, but I never felt lonely. Dad was always joking around like that, filling the house with laughter. But Dad's gone now. I've got to push through on my own. When I looked at the photo, it felt like Mom and Dad were smiling at me gently. Maybe I'll go grab some ice cream at the shop. I walked to the nearby store, bought some ice cream, and headed back home. As I looked up at the sky, a single shooting star streaked across. Whoa, a shooting star. This has to be a good sign. I quietly glanced down at my phone. Before I knew it, I had submitted my application to the dream company. The email stated that the results of the application screening would be sent within 3 business days. That's what it said. It's a long shot anyway, so why not, right? 3 days later, I received an email. With my heart pounding, I opened it. We'd like to invite you to proceed to the interview stage. Would any of the following dates work for you? The message read, "No way, seriously? I actually made it to the interview?" I quickly replied to the email. The interview date was set. The night before, I was ironing my dress shirt. That reminded me of the comment from the last interview. They'd asked me if I didn't have a different suit to wear. Come on, it's not like I have a ton of suits to choose from. I opened my closet and carefully checked each outfit. Suits are expensive. I couldn't afford to own multiple sets. That's when one particular suit caught my eye. It was Dad's old suit.
Why don't you wear this suit? You and I are about the same build, so it should fit you.
But this suit is pretty old, isn't it? Don't most people wear something they bought specifically for job hunting?
Oh, come on. It'll be like I'm wrapping you up and protecting you.
Stop it. Now I really don't want to wear it. I'm getting a new one just for me.
Oh, really?
That conversation felt like it happened just yesterday. Before I realized it, my hand had reached out toward that suit. Wearing this suit will feel like Dad is wrapping me up and protecting me, right? Oh, that reminds me. I still have Dad's watch. It's a little old-fashioned, but I might as well wear it too. I took out the watch that I'd kept safely stored away. Both the suit and the watch were keepsakes Dad had left behind. I never thought the day would come when I'd wear this suit to a job interview. I hung the suit on the hanger, placed the watch on the desk, and went to sleep. The next day, I slipped on Dad's suit, fastened his watch around my wrist, and left the house. My heart was pounding, but I kept running interview scenarios through my head. I practiced over and over so I'd be ready to answer any question that came my way. When I arrived at the interview venue, there were about 10 other people there. Everyone looked more experienced than me, and I felt myself shrink a little. Most of them seemed older and more confident, and I couldn't help but feel outmatched. They had probably built impressive careers before coming here. Just then, a man came over and spoke to me.
Hey, how old are you?
Me? I'm 22.
I'm 25. Did you start working right after high school or something?
No, I graduated from college but left my first job not long after. The guy talking to me was also waiting for his interview. With a friendly smile, he kept the conversation going.
Got it. So you quit pretty soon after starting.
Yeah, that's how it went.
Oh, sorry. I'm not judging you or anything. Did something bad happen?
Well, yeah, my boss was pretty awful. All my peers left too. I know quitting after 6 months was on me, but that's made it tough to find another job.
Yeah, I get that. You can't just blame your old boss during an interview, right? It's hard to know what to say in those situations. I feel you.
Thanks. It really helps to hear that. I don't have many people I can talk to about it.
Of course. Think of me as your big brother, and feel free to talk to me about anything.
He said it with a joking grin. My nerves eased up, and before I knew it, I was smiling too.
My name's Kevin Turner. We're rivals today, but nice to meet you. What's your name?
I'm Alex Carter.
Nice to meet you, Alex. Though it's kind of funny, isn't it? We're here fighting for the same spot, but I'm not really into that cutthroat vibe. I tried talking to the others, but they didn't seem interested.
Is that right? Well, I'm really glad you talked to me. It's way easier to go into an interview after having a chat with someone.
Nice. I like you, man. After the interview, let's grab a bite to eat. No hard feelings either way, right?
Yeah, sounds good. Kevin seemed like a really sociable guy who could make friends easily. Even after just a short chat, it was clear he was a good person. He'd probably make a great salesman. I noticed a few of the others glancing our way, whispering to each other. They probably thought it was pointless to get chummy. I heard that voice.
Well, I'm gonna go practice for the interview. Let's both do our best.
Yes, let's give it our all, Kevin. Before I knew it, it was time for the interview.
I'll be conducting today's interview. Pleased to meet you. The interview will take place in the room next door. There will be other interviewers present, but I'll be the one asking most of the questions. I'll call out 2 names at a time. When your name is called, please proceed to the next room.
After this explanation, the first pair of names was called. My heart pounded as I waited my turn, wondering when I'd be called. There were about 10 candidates. Only 3 would make it. It wasn't impossible, but as I looked around at everyone who seemed so capable, I started to lose confidence. Just then, Dad's watch caught my eye. That's right. Go big or go home, right? I've made it this far. No need to hold back. I'll say what I want and show them what I can do. Dad is watching over me. Mom is probably cheering me on too. I've got this. I gently ran my fingers over the watch and murmured to myself. Another pair was called. Then the next. Finally, it was my turn.
Alex Carter and Kevin Turner, please come to the next room.
Yes.
Looks like we're paired up. As your rival, I'm not holding back.
Same here. Let's do our best. It felt a little awkward to be interviewed alongside someone I knew. But I didn't have time to dwell on that. This was my chance. I had to make the most of it. Kevin and I entered the room and sat down.
Please start by introducing yourselves, sharing your educational background, and giving your personal pitch.
Yes.
Kevin gave a confident and articulate introduction. As expected, he was an excellent speaker. With his friendly smile, he highlighted his strengths perfectly. Listening to him, I silently hyped myself up. Follow his lead. If I spoke with hesitation after such a great pitch, I'd fade into the background. With full confidence, I delivered my own introduction and personal pitch. I thought I saw Kevin smile encouragingly from the seat beside me. After I finished, I noticed something strange. One of the interviewers was staring at me intently. Even when I wasn't speaking, he kept silently watching me. Does this suit not look right on me? Despite that distracting thought, the interview continued. There were a few unexpected questions, but I managed to answer all of them without any problems. Kevin was right there with me. Listening to how confidently Kevin answered made me feel like I didn't want to lose. Thanks to that, I felt like I gave the best interview of my life. When the interview was nearing its end, the man who had been silently watching me finally spoke up.
May I ask a question as well?
Michael, of course, please go ahead.
It seemed unusual for the man called Michael to ask a question, and the other interviewers looked a bit confused. I tensed up, wondering what he was going to ask.
Sorry if this is unrelated, but where did you get that suit and watch? Did you buy them at a vintage store?
What? The sudden question made my mind go blank. Did he mean they looked old and worn out? Was he asking why I was wearing something so outdated? I hurried to explain. No, I didn't buy these at a vintage store. They belonged to my late father. I'm wearing them today as a sort of good luck charm. Is there something wrong with them?
I see. Your father has passed away.
Yes, he passed away from illness last year. I remembered that he once told me to wear this suit to my interviews. So I decided to wear it today. He said that wearing this suit would make me feel like he was protecting me.
By the way, why do you want to work at this company? There are plenty of other companies in the same field. Why ours? I'd like to hear your reasons.
Yes, it's true there are many sales positions out there, but I've admired your company for years. My admiration stems from my late father's influence. My father would always praise your company over and over. He used to say, "They've grown from a small business into something this great." He explained your company's history so many times, I practically had it memorized. So, when I saw the job opening for this company I've admired since I was a kid, I knew I had to apply.
I see. Did you like your father?
Yes, I was very proud of him. When I said that, Michael covered his eyes with his hand, and he let out a deep sigh.
Is everything all right, Michael?
That watch. I had a feeling.
Sorry?
I have a son too. We had a falling out and haven't spoken since. I've always hoped he's doing well somewhere. I see. Could I speak with you for a few minutes after this, Alex Carter?
Yes, of course. At that moment, I suddenly remembered the name of the company president. Michael Carter. Could this man be the president himself? The company had never posted his photo anywhere, so I hadn't recognized him until now. And we shared the same last name, Carter. I had thought it was just a coincidence since it wasn't a particularly rare name. After a final question, the interview concluded successfully. But to my surprise, Kevin was wiping his nose and crying. He even answered the last question with a tearful voice. "Hey, what's with the tears? You scared me when you started crying during the interview."
Your dad sounds like a great guy. So that suit and watch have such sentimental value. I'm weak when it comes to stories like that.
Kevin's eyes were red, and he was sniffing as he spoke. Seeing that, I couldn't help but laugh. I've never seen someone cry during an interview.
Well, it's your fault for telling such a touching story out of nowhere. Everything was going smoothly until that point. Then my mind went completely blank because of you.
It shows how genuine you are, and it's a good thing. Oops, sorry, I switched to casual language.
It's fine. I don't mind.
After a while, all the interviews ended, and we were dismissed. However, Michael asked me to stay behind. Kevin waited for me at a nearby cafe, In the quiet room, Michael looked at me intently with a serious expression.
Was your father's name Ryan Carter?
Yes, that's right.
Apologies for asking such a strange question during the interview. When I saw that suit and watch, I couldn't help myself. So, Ryan has passed away?
Yes, he passed away last year due to illness.
And your mother? Does she live with you?
My mother passed away from illness when I was very young.
I see. Let me tell you a little about your father. But before that, did he ever tell you anything about his parents, your grandparents?
I was told they passed away when I was little.
I see. You might find this hard to believe, but I'm your grandfather. Ryan and I once worked together at this very company. This business has been passed down from my father, and I had intended for Ryan to take over after me. Then, he told me he wanted to marry someone. He brought your mother to meet me. I couldn't accept it at the time.
When he said he was my grandfather, I wasn't that surprised. I had a feeling from the interview that there might be something more to him. Plus, there was something about him that reminded me of Dad. That probably made it easier to believe. Why couldn't you accept it?
I had arranged for him to marry someone else for the sake of the family's future. Well, it wasn't Ryan's decision, and it was entirely something I set up. I thought it was what was best for him. But then he brought home a woman I didn't know and declared, "I'm marrying her." I couldn't forgive him for that. And to be honest, I thought it was a blow to my reputation. Of course, it was entirely my fault for not listening to him. But back then, I truly believed I was doing what was best for him.
Michael spoke of those times with a pained expression, his eyes narrowing as if lost in memory.
The woman he brought home was frail and already pregnant, I learned. I was furious when I found out that he had gotten another woman pregnant when I had already set up a match for him. In my anger, I kicked him out of the house. After that, we lost all contact. At first, I figured I'd still see him at work, but soon after, Ryan left the company. I never reached out to him, and he never contacted me either. I just kept hoping he was living well somewhere out there.
I see. So, Michael, you really are
Your grandfather. But really, I'm just a man connected to you by blood. I haven't done anything deserving of the title grandfather.
I can't believe my father went through something like that. But didn't he betray the woman he was supposed to marry?
At the time, I thought so too. But apparently, he was upfront with her from the beginning. He told her he wasn't planning to marry her because he loved someone else. She didn't take him seriously and didn't seem too bothered by it.
I see. Hearing these shocking revelations, my mind struggled to process everything. My grandfather was alive, and my dad was supposed to be the next president of this company. Did he really run away with my mom? My dad, who was always smiling and hard to read. I never imagined he was hiding such a secret. By the way, that suit and watch.
That suit was something Ryan bought with his very first paycheck. He and I went shopping together, and he tried on a bunch of suits, saying, "No, not this one. No, not that one," before finally settling on it. It was quite a struggle. Ryan was a stubborn man. It took him over 3 days just to pick a suit. As for the watch, I gave it to him as a gift when he got his first job. I thought, if he's going to be a professional, he should have something nice. It's engraved with his name. There's no mistaking it. It's the suit and watch he cherished.
Michael's eyes shimmered with tears as he shared everything with me. He must have regretted the day he argued with my dad and kicked him out. I never knew Dad had such a stubborn side. They could have made up so easily if one of them had just reached out first. If you'd like, would you come to bring flowers sometime? I think both my mom and dad would be happy.
Is that really okay? I wasn't exactly a great-grandfather or a great father. I wonder what Ryan thought of me.
I can't say for sure, but whenever my dad talked about this company, he looked so happy. He always spoke proudly about the company. He'd even say things like, "If I ever get the chance to work there, I'll be able to brag about it to everyone." I think the company and you were both very important to him.
I see.
Michael wiped his eyes and his shoulders trembled slightly.
Thank you for telling me all this today. Please allow me to visit your parents soon to pay my respects.
Of course. I left the room and headed to the cafe where Kevin was waiting. So much had happened that day. The interview at the company I'd admired for so long. Discovering my dad's hidden past. And meeting my grandfather, who was still alive.
Man, you're late. What were you talking about?
Well, you see, when I told Kevin the whole story, he burst into tears, even louder than during the interview. Seeing his face made me laugh despite myself. Before I knew it, a tear slipped from my own eye too. A few days later, I got a call saying they wanted me to work for their company. I was officially hired by the top company I'd dreamed of working at, but it didn't feel real. It was too good to be true. And a few days after that, my grandfather came to visit my home. We offered flowers and stared at the picture.
Did your parents seem happy?
Yes, they were always joking around, but we were a home full of smiles.
I see.
And there's something else. I handed him a letter. While I was going through Dad's belongings after the interview, I found this. I hadn't noticed it before, but there was a letter addressed to me, and one that I think was meant for you. I haven't read what's inside. When I sorted through my dad's belongings, I found 2 letters. One was addressed to me, Alex. The other was addressed to my grandfather. Michael's eyes widened as he carefully took the letter in his hands.
May I read it now?
Yes. The two of us began reading the letters together. To be honest, I didn't have the courage to read it alone. That's why I waited for Michael to come so we could read it together. In my letter, my dad had written,
Alex, you actually have a grandfather. I'm sorry for lying and telling you he had passed away. And here's something that will really surprise you. Your grandfather is the president of the very company you've admired for so long. I had a big fight with him and left home. Since that day, I never reached out to him again. But if you ever find yourself in trouble, reach out to him. I'm sure he'll help you. If you're reading this letter, it probably means I didn't recover from my illness. Well, that's life. I'm heading off to see your mom first. But I can't help worrying about you. You're earnest and have a strong sense of justice. I worry that those traits might backfire on you. If you ever find yourself in a bind, don't hesitate to rely on your grandfather. I'm sure he'll come through for you. If he doesn't, sorry. But I believe he will. And he's a serious and kind man at heart, and he won't be able to ignore you. If it seems like he might, pull out the tears. He's a total softy for that. Take care, my one and only son. I love you, Alex Carter.
Man, even at the end, he couldn't stop being cheesy. By the time I finished reading, big tears were streaming down my face. When I glanced over, Michael was crying too. What did your letter say?
He wrote that he forgives me and that he wished he had apologized sooner. But he also asked me to take care of you in his place. He warned me that if I didn't, he'd never forgive me. He even threatened to teach me a lesson in heaven. With a warning like that, I guess I've got no choice but to take care of you.
That sounds just like him.
Yeah, exactly like him.
We talked about Dad for a long time. Michael told me stories from before I was born. I shared stories about my dad after he became a father. I learned things I never knew about my dad as a young man. And Michael learned what he was like as a dad. It was so fun that time flew by. Wow, it's gotten late.
I think I've stayed too long. Sorry about that. Would it be all right if I came by again to bring flowers?
Of course, you're welcome anytime. Michael stood up, gathered his things, and headed to the door. At the entrance, he turned around and said,
So, you're really going to work at our company. I'm counting on you. But just to be clear, I didn't hire you because you're my grandson. I hired you because I believe in Alex Carter, the man. I'm rooting for your success.
"Thank you. I'll do my best." I had wondered if I was hired because I was his grandson. But he made it clear that wasn't the case. He saw me as an individual. He believed in me. I was just so happy. That's why after I joined the company, I gave everything I had and worked as hard as I could. But there was one unexpected twist.
Hey, you made it too, right? Looks like we're officially coworkers now.
Kevin, you passed too. Let's do our best together. I made a slightly emotional but loyal friend. Kevin had also passed, and we ended up working together. The work was tough, and there was a lot to learn, but I was determined to keep giving my best at this company. Since that day, I've met with my grandfather from time to time. It still feels a little embarrassing to call him Grandpa, but I hope that one day I'll be able to say it naturally. When we meet, we always talk about my mom and dad. It's as if we're filling the time lost after my dad passed away. Michael listens to my stories with such joy in his eyes. Even though I thought I was all alone after losing both my parents, that wasn't true. I'm going to treasure my grandfather and the company he's dedicated his life to.